It's time to accelerate. Hi, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Join me as I host conversations with the leading experts in sales, marketing, sales automation, sales process, leadership, management, training, coaching, any resource that I believe to help you accelerate the growth of your sales, your business, and most importantly, you. Welcome to the show. Today, our guest is Nancy Munro, founder and CEO of Knowledge Shift. And you can find her online at knowledgeshift.net. So Nancy, welcome.
Thank you, Andy. I'm glad to be here.
Well, I said, thanks for being here. So rather than have me read some standard introduction about you, why don't you take a minute or two and introduce yourself to the audience and tell us what you do and who do you do it for?
Sure. So basically, I started a company called Knowledge Shift about 10 years ago. And prior to that, I had been in a business development position for several different companies, primarily in the learning space. And so naturally, when I started my own business, it was in that same space. But I really got into trying to build learning tools, learning technology that really made an impact versus the standard kind of boring page turner or mouse clicking thing that I typically get stuck producing for my clients, which was always fun. And I knew 5 years ago that mobile devices were really going to not go anywhere. There's obviously I could see where the growth was in that space. So I really got into the field of voice-based technologies. And it took me down this whole different path that I never envisioned getting into, and has really just opened up the doors to a completely new market. And we have developed and embedded some very unique types of voice-based technologies that are primarily used for sales training right now.
So, yeah, I'm fascinated by that. So what was sort of that aha moment where you said, there's a problem with, people's performance is adversely impacted by the way they speak and the way they talk?
Right. So let me back up a little bit. So the technologies that we deal with almost all the time, full time, is telephone-based technology. But people immediately say, "Oh, did you make an app?" And I'm really kind of anti-app, because when we're selling to a large enterprise organization, I've faced that challenge of, "Oh, just install it," or "Oh, just download it," or "Oh," the last thing I want to do is give salespeople one other excuse not to do something, right?
Right.
So I'm going to make this as easy as possible. I'm going to actually use old school technology called IVRs, interactive voice response systems, which today are all in the cloud for the most part. And so voice, I think, is the next kind of pioneering world of analytics, because there's all this technology in the world that people are using to measure metrics as who's hitting your website, metrics on lead scoring, metrics on how to get to that account or that rep, or tracking CRM, and all these things that people are pouring millions of dollars into all this technology. But at the end of the day, if you have to have a conversation to close the deal, what are you doing to improve that piece of the pipeline?
Well, and especially because increasingly those conversations happen not face to face, but happen over the phone, happen remotely, right? I mean, when we're seeing this whole shift in the paradigm from field sales reps to inside sales reps, that, for some products, they're being sold completely through, in some fairly complex products, expensive products, being sold completely through inside sales.
Yeah,
where no one ever sees the customer face to face, except maybe on a Skype session or something. So, how people speak and as you talked about, just the tone and tenor of their voice really make a difference.
Well, and because voice-based technologies now, there's a lot in what's called natural language processing, and a lot of research that's getting into that space now. And just over the last year, I have been fortunate enough to find some very interesting stories and research around how just by the sound of your voice, people judge who you are as a person.
Well, tell us something about that. I mean, you referred to those in your talk I saw you give in Denver. Give us some examples.
Sure. So the one study that I found was done out of college out of Scotland, and a psychologist asked people to read a short, paragraph, and he extracted out of that when they said the word hello. And then he asked a group of people to rate these people and their personality characteristics by just hearing the word hello. And
Just hello.
yeah, just hello. And unanimously, and even in the audience, unanimously, they all agreed on which voices sounded more trustworthy just by the word hello. Now, it's not to say that these people weren't trustworthy, it's your perception
Right.
who they are. So, don't get it's not a personality characteristic test. It's what is your perception of this person.
Right. And then when you don't have the person to see to help form a broader perception,
right,
voice is it, right?
It's it.
And this is, and it just, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was just going to say, for the, younger people perhaps in the audience that are listening that, perhaps are working in a sales development role, that, historically haven't really used the phone other than for texting and others, and now being put in roles where they have to, where they have to talk to people.
Yeah.
It's not something you take casually.
No.
Right? I mean, I want to get into later. I remind to bring this up is, one thing that drives me nuts is when people use overfamiliar terms like buddy and so on. And I find that, I was thinking about that when you're giving your talk. It's like, it's somewhat a little bit generational.
Yeah.
Is I think people are, I don't know, maybe a certain age category. Well, I don't want to stereotype people, but they're a little less formal in the way they talk on the phone.
Right, exactly. Well, and not only that, but let's say I am selling a complex product over the phone and I sound like Marilyn Monroe.
Right.
Would you buy from me?
Well, yeah, I mean, it sort of raises a question like that movie Her, right? I was just talking to somebody recently about that. Would you buy something from your operating system?
Yeah.
if it sounded like Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, and that's the thing. There is technology making automated voices sound more human, which is really scary. And so, where is this technology going? So I'm saying, organizations need to start paying attention to the verbal communications that they are having, either from their call centers, from their sales reps, from tech support, and just, how many minutes a month is someone in a conversation via telephone in the organization?
Mm-hmm.
And is there a gap in that line of communication that you can see patterns at? Is there some way or some hiccup that keeps happening in one of those channels that can be addressed that has a dramatic impact to the bottom line?
Is there a way for people to self-assess?
Yes. So, if they use our tool, we have a conversation simulator.
Mm-hmm.
Let that person self-assess. Actually, we have, if you're posting this online somewhere, I'll send you a link where they can actually go to a web page.
Oh, please do. Yes.
Yeah. And so on this link, after they put in their email address, they're just asked 3 questions. What skills do you think it takes to be a super salesperson? So you just respond right into your browser. You don't need a microphone. It's another kind of new voice technology called WebRTC that's now turning your browser into a two-way communication device verbally.
Okay.
So we're going to capture your voice through the browser, answer those 3 questions, and then you'll get what's called using our Emotimeter. You're going to get a measurement of your voice style as its composure rating, temperament, and a primary and a secondary emotion. And it doesn't matter what language you're speaking, you can respond in Spanish, Hebrew, whatever you want to respond in.
Mm-hmm.
And because emotions are universal in the voice. When someone's speaking, whether or not they're happy, they're sad, angry, frustrated, you don't know, even if you don't know what the languages they're speaking, you can tell what the emotion is in their voice.
And so when they get this assessment back, I mean, is there, based on the research you've seen or done, is there a way for them, it puts them into categories that say, based on your job, you're here and you need to be over here, or what sort of recommendations do they get?
Yeah, we haven't built that into it. This is just to kind of show you how the Emotimeter works. And then you can, contact us to say, okay, I want to use this for XYZ purposes. Because now that we have this and people have seen it, the very first question they start to go towards is, can you measure my live conversations, or can you take my recorded conversations? and measure this. And then my next question is, well, then what will you do with that information?
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, so when people get this ranking or assessment from Emotimeter, is that what you would think someone, that's how others would perceive you?
yeah,
So if
well,
there's,
yes and no.
if it says, "Gosh, you have a happy voice," then what's telling you is that's typically how you're perceived in your normal speaking voice.
Yes, if you respond in just kind of a natural conversational tone that you would have, like you and I are talking right now, yeah, it's going to give you that reading. But I do caution people, take into context what you're responding to.
Mm-hmm.
So the questions are, what we actually did this at a trade show where people were in a very loud environment, so they were speaking at a higher tone, probably louder. So a lot of the results came back that they were too aggressive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I said, well, I'm not gonna take that as an accurate measurement in this scenario because you're yelling in a crowded environment. So if you are speaking in your normal tone, in a conversational tone, then yes, it will tell you whether you have what I call low vocal energy. So it'll come back as isolated or low energy.
The low talker, like on Seinfeld.
Yes, actually. Or sometimes the temperament is low, but the composure is high, and your emotions are, let's say, aggressive. And so what that tells me is you're masking the fact that you're frustrated about something because you're keeping your voice in a straight kind of safe composure level.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something that's coming out in the way you're saying it that shows you're not necessarily calm.
Right.
But it sounds like you're calm. So you're doing a really good job of masking your frustrations by the composure or the temperament of your voice.
Interesting.
And so where I see this really show up vividly is in the simulator that people are using from us. They're talking to a pre-recorded character, but sometimes it's okay. You're going to practice leaving a voicemail. So salespeople, have to leave voicemails once in a while.
80% of the time, yes.
Right. And so when people first start to do that, I can see that they can start off in a very calm, composed way. Hi, my name is Nancy from Knowledge Shift. And as they start to go down the path of I'm calling because blah, 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 whatever, that's when they lose control, they lose confidence. And, if the emotimeter is picking up on that, then the person hearing your message is picking up on that as well. And so you need to go back through and practice that to where the person listening to it doesn't, delete you as soon as they hear, hi, my name is Nancy from Knowledge Shift. Mm-hmm. You're leaving a message that not only has content that's important or interesting to them, but you're saying in a way that motivates them to call you back, or at least not necessarily calls you back, because this happens a lot, but they'll know next time you call in or they see on caller ID it's you, that they may want to actually pick up the phone now.
Right. Yeah, I mean, just at the beginning, when just the quality of your voice could be something that causes the customer to hang up the phone without even listening to your voice message, regardless of how valuable it might be.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I had a guy work for me once, gosh, it was 10 plus years ago, who was extremely capable in his field, in a marketing endeavor, but he had this, strangled talking voice, right? He's swallowing his words, and it was painful sometimes to listen to him talk and to deal with outsiders. And he finally, and I'd coached him, I know other people coached him, he finally went and saw a speech therapist about it. That really made a huge difference in the quality of his voice. And his career has really taken off as a consequence.
Right, exactly. So there's other studies out there that show the top executives. Have you ever seen a very successful CEO with a horrible speaking voice?
Rarely.
I'm trying to think of one. In fact, it was Margaret Thatcher supposedly trained her voice to speak at a different tonality. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, why did she do that? Why in King's Speech, that whole movie, why did that I forget which king it was, that started.
George, right?
he realized that, oh gosh, I'm going to be on the radio now and I can't speak well. I can't just get away with waving my hand up in my castle anymore and getting along with people.
Well,
And
especially, yeah, in times of trouble, it's hard to be an inspirational figure, which is really what they were looking for him to be if he couldn't speak in public.
right. So, there's basically in the sales process, you can adapt your voice to be changed in a way for the circumstance that you're in. And so I do a webinar called How Your Voice Can Make or Break the Sale. And there's different ways that you can speak in kind of this arching style where you talk up and you slow down. You speak loud and you speak soft. And, I kind of compare that to televangelists or really good politicians that are giving a speech. And that actually creates a sense of, you're trying to pull people in. You're trying to, engage them in a way that shows that you're knowledgeable on a certain topic. Then there's other situations where you want to get excited and be like a cheerleader voice. Well, that's gaining participation. So you think of all the different stages of the sales process that you go through and think about the style that you want to use for that situation.
Right.
And it's all verbal. And it's, it is interesting because, I talk about how Maya Angelou's quote about, people will always may not remember what you said to them, but they'll always remember how you made them feel.
Right.
But what is that? What is that intangible thing that, they made me feel good, not only about what they said, but just the way they said it or the way they engaged with me. And if it's just over the phone, how do you build that rapport? How do you get people to warm up to you? And if your voice is irritating or you speak in kind of a manner that either shows your perception of your level of intelligence because of the language you use, or just the way that you say it, the voice mannerisms that you use, make a huge impact. So the other kind of study that I found is they compared Walter Cronkite with Anderson Cooper. And and so they measured their tonality in a harmonic megahertz levels. And what they found was that Walter Cronkite is a more trustworthy voice, not necessarily because the way he reported the news or the news that he was reporting on, it's that he speaks slower. He has more harmonic tonalities in his voice. Because you think about Anderson Cooper, he does talk kind of fast and fast kind of pace.
Right.
And if I was listening to one voice versus the other, I probably would say, I trust that guy. Even if I didn't know who it was, I would say, I trust that guy more than I trust the other guy.
Right.
And so I tell sales reps, slow down. And it may be painful for you to do this, but just even practice speaking slower, putting space between what you're saying. I'm a musician too, and so I kind of compare those things to when you hear a good jazz improv. Sometimes the best note is no note at all.
Exactly. So
and knowing where to place that, yeah.
Right. All right. So we're going to take a little bit of break here, and my guest is Nancy Munro. And as we come back, we'll talk more further about voice enablement tools and this whole, fascinating topic about how your voice affects your ultimate success. Hi, this is Andy. Connect and Sell is used by sales reps at nearly 1,000 companies, including hundreds of technology startups and several Fortune 500 companies, to overcome the challenges of getting prospects on the phone. Companies using Connect and Sell grow their revenues faster by enabling their sales reps to have more sales conversations in 90 minutes than they could otherwise achieve in an entire week. Connect and Sell can be deployed directly to your sales reps, or you can take advantage of their outbound on-demand service, which delivers qualified prospect meetings scheduled directly on your sales reps' calendars. Visit connectandsell.com to learn more about how Connect and Sell can start filling your pipeline today. Welcome back. My guest today is Nancy Munro. You can find Nancy online at knowledgeshift.net. So I want to talk a little bit about your voice enablement tools, but I want to follow up on a point you had made earlier, because I think that people listening to this might think that they were talking about something that's kind of esoteric, about, the tonality in my voice and the difference that might make in my ultimate success. But yeah, for me as a salesperson, part of the reason that it captured my attention, and I really hadn't focused on this thought before, is that, or on this topic before, that until I really heard you speak, was that, there's so few things that are under our control as sellers.
Right.
Right? We can't control the quality of the product we sell. We can't control the price. There's a lot of things we can't control. So we need to really make sure that we're working to perfect those things we can control. Right. And increasingly, as we switch to an inside sales world where you're one step removed from the prospect and there's not necessarily visible cues they can use to form the perception of you, and it's really driven by your voice, this really is a very important thing for people to pay attention to.
Well, right. And so, I have a little calculator that I created, and I've coined the term verbal transaction. What is the value of every conversation that you have? And I'm just shocked that so many inside sales managers have not broken it down to what is that conversation worth. So I, through this calculator, you put it together, you just basically take what's the rep's monthly revenue goal, what's their salary, how many dials does it take to get a live body, out of those live bodies, what's the next, do they follow up with the next step, and out of those, how many do you close? And so if you're telling the sales rep every time you have a conversation, it's $500 in your pocket, or whatever that figure comes out to be, that raises, the level of importance of, so if it's worth $500, how are you gonna perform when you're in that conversation? And be very conscientious of how you sound, the way that you sound. How do you build that rapport? How are you getting past the gatekeeper? And what style should I be using for this type of conversation? Am I talking to somebody in the C-suite and they want to know that I can speak with authority and confidence? Or am I going to blow it and stumble and thought, oh gosh, I have the CEO on, I'm all nervous now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
What do I do? What do I do?
Right, and if someone was listening to that call, if you're a sales manager listening to that call that your rep was making, predominantly what would happen is they would focus on the words, not on how it was said.
Or they said, you're okay, you said the right thing, but you said like 6 times. Like he was like this and I was like that, and it just sounds like you're young. And there was a gentleman at that Denver conference we were both at that sells analytics in their analytics company, and I said, "What's your biggest challenge?" And I couldn't have served up a better response myself. He says, "Well, the way that our reps present themselves in their messaging." And I'm just like, "Oh, you're putty into my hand."
Well, you think about it. I mean, to me, the way the analogy I draw is back in the day, and still to some degree, as salespeople, part of our perception that we were creating in the mind of the prospect was based on how we dressed.
Yeah.
And so since the prospect oftentimes, especially through the first few stages of a sales process, if it's, let's say, a hybrid model and that starts internally but eventually gets to a face-to-face meeting, they can't see you. Mm-hmm. So to me, what's the equivalent of the way you dress? It's how you're presenting yourself on the phone.
Right. And your buyer is.
Yeah, and it's as much, and this sort of gets back to what I talk about in my books, where it's less about what you're selling, more about how you sell it. And to some degree, it's really not entirely about what you say, it's also about how you say it.
Well, and I said, or do you have a lot of young sales reps? Because that led me to believe he did, because you're selling research to someone that's more senior in the company and you've got somebody fresh out of college trying to sell it to you. Then I could see it's not, so it's kind of a combination of, right, maybe they're not confident in the way that they're speaking to someone at that level in the organization, but as one of the days you did do a lot of face-to-face, it said you don't have enough gray hair to prove you know what you're talking about. And so they can tell it's a younger person talking to them. So why should they believe that they have this very powerful research that they're trying to sell them?
Right. Oh, yeah, that harkens back to my early days selling when I was out making cold calls and voice cold calls and so on, telephone cold calls. Yeah, I'm sure I was not. I'm sure there were times I wasn't talking with a great deal of confidence.
Yeah. So it's so in that case though, if I could tell someone's just by their voice is probably, under the age of 30, then it's the way that you say it, the confidence that's in your voice would impress me to listen to that individual, to say, wow, I can tell they're kind of a younger person, but they seem to be an authority on this topic. And, I've seen some pretty sharp younger people out there these days. So, okay, let's hear what you have to say. And so it all goes back to that confidence level, the right amount of energy in your voice, but just enough that you're not going to go over the top with the type of person that you're trying to interact with.
So at this conference in Denver that you and I were both at, I had the misfortune to talk right after you did, because here you had given this talk about, the ability of your tonality of your voice to inspire confidence and your credibility and trustworthiness about a particular topic, and I had to go on and speak next. So how'd I do?
No, you did great. You had the right type of energy in your voice. Of course, I wasn't measuring you with my scientific software.
Didn't mean to put you on the spot,
but just from the spot checking that I do today in the tool that we sell, that I'm beginning to pick up with my ear subtle things. And certainly you've done enough public speaking that you would have received some form of feedback previously to say, dude, what's going on? You're a horrible speaker. We can't understand you, whatever. So you're obviously have done this, this wasn't your first speech. So it's obviously that you've been well trained and you know what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, certainly trained and taking the feedback, right? I think that's really the part of the thing, is that as managers, I think a message to managers or business owners or CEOs that are listening to this is that pay attention to this, right? It's not just purely about the words that are coming out of the mouth, but it's, how the words are being expressed that really make a difference. And again, it's one of these aspects of your sort of toolkit that you can control. Make sure you do the things you can to control it.
Absolutely. And practice it. So that's why I created this role-playing simulator, because organizations, almost every one of them does role-playing, but they do it very poorly, and they know that. So I always ask them, why do you role-play? So
this is the Mobi role-play product?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So something else to look at when you go to knowledgeshift.net, it's called Mobi, MOBI -role-play. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So our clients can create customized simulated conversations that are appropriate to their scenarios. And so basically we pre-record characters that they're going to be talking to on whatever topics they've created. And so you log into a portal, the user would see a selection of role plays or just a role play to pick from, and then they put in their phone number and hit submit. And so our system calls that phone number and you begin having this conversation. So it's a two-way dialogue with this character. And so that's kind of the old school IVR technology in the background, but it's blending in voice transcription. So we transcribe your voice. So as you're speaking in the simulator, we're going to compare what you said to a series of keywords that you've decided they should be using in each response. And then there's point values associated with those keywords. But then we're also measuring how you say it using our emotimeter. The emotimeter will take any response that's 14 seconds or longer and give you a measurement from 0 to 100 on composure and temperament. And then it'll give you a primary and secondary emotion. So now we can measure both what and how you say something in a conversation to help you see, because it's visual too. The emotimeter gives you a graphical representation of your responses. So if I'm that sales rep and I see that at the end of that simulation, the last thing I heard was, this completes your simulation. If your points were, 80 points or higher, you did well in the what you said. So somebody could still do well in that portion of it, but then when they look at their emotimeter ratings and it's in the red zone for composure or temperament, or it shows they have low vocal energy, that tells me that, okay, I've done kind of the knowledge transfer of product knowledge, but I haven't really taught that person how to convey that information in a confident and
Mm-hmm.
knowledgeable manner.
And is
And,
this? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
and I'm just saying, you can teach all of that product information. They could be reading it out of a manual or whatever, but they can't say it in a way that exudes confidence and trust. Then it's going to be a much longer sales process.
I was going to ask: is this priced in such a way that small, mid-sized business can afford it as well as large enterprise?
Oh yeah. Our starting point is 1,000 minutes a month for just under $700.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I think for anybody that's looking at how investing, small, medium-sized enterprise, looking at investing in Salesforce development, this is really something to consider when you consider the options you have for sales training, whether it's having a speaking head speak up and stand up in front of the room and talk, or
Right.
something that you can use on an ongoing basis like this to fine-tune the quality of the interactions you have with your prospects. Very important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's something that nobody's looking for this. So of course I'm doing all the kind of outbound sales myself as well. And so when I get people to kind of listen to me, so when I start going down that sales process, I said, well, how do you know this works? And I first thing I say is, well, I have you on the phone, don't I?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely.
I use it every day. So, and put it into practice, measure my voice. And there's certain things that even I have to, it's really made me much more self-conscious. And part of it is just making people aware that you're at this level, or this is the way you are being perceived.
Yeah, and I just harken back. I had a conversation with clients just a couple of days ago, and they talked about just client was very insistent. He's talking about a specific problem they're having, and is really sort of on the relationship building side of with some of their long term clients, and I kept insisting that hey, we do a great job of sales training every year. We meet and 2 days off site, and we do this and this and this, and it's like, yeah, but so try something different. Right, and this is what you're doing is something that's different, and I would recommend people really take a look at it. So, I'm gonna move into the last segment of our show. We're gonna get some rapid fire questions for you, sort of stream of consciousness. You can one word answers if you want, or elaborate if you
Okay.
feel the need. But so,
Sure.
what's the most powerful tool in your sales arsenal?
Besides Moby Roleplay?
Yeah, in your own personal sales arsenal.
Yeah. So I use a what is it called? Sidekick.
Sidekick. Okay.
Yeah. So Sidekick is from HubSpot, but it's free. It will tell me if someone has opened up an Outlook email without them knowing it.
Yeah. So great sales engagement. So you can understand.
Right.
Right. Perfect. Okay. So who's your sales role model?
Boy, it's not. I'm not so rapid fire, am I? I hate to say it, but I like Zig Ziglar.
Oh, nothing wrong with that. That's
Yeah.
lots of people bring that up.
Yep.
What's the one book every salesperson should read?
How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Okay. Also been mentioned several times. Your favorite music to listen to psych yourself up for a sales call?
Jazz.
What's the first sales activity you do every day?
I write down. I literally have tick marks for every call I make. So I put a column,
Mm-hmm.
piece of the paper. How many demos am I going to book, and how many calls am I going to make today? That's the very first thing I write down in the morning.
What's your definition of value in selling?
Building a long-term relationship with the client.
What do you do to keep fit and healthy?
Lots. I was a bodybuilder years ago, so I lift a lot of weights. I
Mm-hmm.
run 3 miles 5 days a week and do yoga.
Wow. Wish I could do all that. So I do some of that. The one question you get asked most frequently by salespeople is?
How does that work?
Perfect. So last question. What do you do every day to improve, either in business or in life?
I would have to say the working out that I do.
Okay. Perfect. Well, great. Well, Nancy, I want to thank you very much for being here.
Sure.
Great talk. Fascinating topic. Really encourage people to go check out Nancy's products and services at knowledgeshift.net. Is there any other way people should be getting in touch with you?
That's probably the best way because there's some videos out there that show how it works and talks about Emotimeter, and there's calculators that you can download so you can kind of measure your own verbal transactions. So, there's lots of good resources there for people to take advantage of.
Great. Make sure you check it out. So remember, if you're an entrepreneur, you're in sales, and if you're in sales, you are an entrepreneur. So make it a part of your day, every day, to learn something new to help you amp up your sales. This is Andy Paul. Good selling. Hi, this is Andy. I have a special offer for loyal listeners of Accelerate. It's a no-obligation free trial of my zero-time selling interactive online training. Now, I've worked with thousands of sales reps to teach them how to use my zero-time selling to boost their productivity and transform the results. And so if you want to learn the same proven strategies to help you open more doors, have more effective sales conversations with prospects, and close more orders, then my zero-time selling interactive training system is a fit for you. It's incredibly simple to start. Just take out your smartphone and text the word TRUST, that's TRUST, to 96,000. Now, do you have your phone ready? You're going to send a text to 96000. That's a 9 and a 6 followed by 3 zeros. Now enter the single word message TRUST and hit send, and you hear right back from me with instructions on how to sign up for your free trial on my zero-time selling interactive training. I look forward to seeing you there. Thanks for listening to the show. If you like what you heard and want to make sure you don't miss any upcoming episodes, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher.com. For more information about today's guest, visit my website at andypaul.com.